Part 72. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 711. Chapter 711. This is my first love. Wrongly owed Chinwan a favor and invited her to dinner. Chinwan didn't want to welcome him, and no one invited him to have a meal. However, Chen Liangdong called her and told her that he had to work overtime. North also had to work overtime recently, so dinner was not available. Without a solution, he reluctantly accepted Rong Li's decision. Chinwan said, "I want to eat spicy hot pot." Rong Li, who had already booked a restaurant, took a deep breath and said, "Okay, let's eat spicy hot pot." The two went to a very popular Sichuan hot pot. Unlike Ji Sun and Zhang Junlin, they didn't have as many guards when traveling. Because Rong Li lived in seclusion, he didn't arrange for any guards to be around. The spicy hot pot tasted almost the same, so the two chose a lively restaurant. He rushed in. Chinwan ordered 4 portions of meat and 5 or 6 portions of seafood, and then asked meaningfully, "Are you not picky about food? Don't eat offal." Chinwan. "All right, she should remove the few things she wants to eat and respect other people's tastes. She is not that domineering." Rong Li wiped the table and chopsticks with a wet wipe in disgust. He was obviously a little uncomfortable sitting up and covering his nose. He was choked by the spicy smell. Chinwan didn't pay much attention to it at first, but when he noticed it, he found it quite interesting and looked at Rong Li curiously. "Are you misophobic?" "No," Rong Li had no expression on his face and put down the wet tissue calmly. "If you don't like it, you can change the store." "It doesn't matter, I'm not picky about food." Chinwan just said that he didn't eat offal, so he curled his lips and ignored him. "Then just eat your favorite dishes." Rong Li took the menu and after seeing the dishes Chinwan checked, he picked a few more mushrooms and vegetables. They both ordered beer before placing their orders. To eat spicy hot pot, you need to drink beer, which is enough. "If you handle this matter, Ji Xian and my master won't quarrel, right?" Chinwan said smartly. "My master has no intention of pursuing Song Li and you for any dirty deeds." "Yo, so generous." "Ji Xian has gone to Hiken. He has to be alone and look pitiful during the Chinese New Year. My master just does this." "What can I do?" Chinwan spread her hands. "If he were a woman, he would be a vixen." "No, he is a man and a male vixen. The soul of the master has been taken away, and such a big matter will not be pursued. It is impossible for Zhang Junlin to give up collective interests for the sake of personal feelings." Rong Li still knows a little about Zhang Junlin. Xiao Xian is a little crazy and has a sense of proportion. Besides, it happened a few years ago. The problem is not these nonsense. You've never been in love with anyone, and yet you still understand so much. Rong Li said coldly, "I don't understand, you can read." "Oh, on paper." Rong Li sneered, "It's just a piece of cake, don't tell anyone else." "I've been in love since high school, who can be like you?" Chinwan boasted, refusing to admit that he was about to graduate from graduate school and had never been in love. This was so shameless. "Have you ever been in love? A beautiful woman like me has never been in love. Isn't that a waste of the beauty my parents gave me?" Chinwan raised her finger. "I have had 1, 2, 3, 4 boyfriends." Rong Li twitched the corners of his lips. "Ha!" This utterance was very meaningful, and Chinwan felt that he was being ridiculed. Just as she was about to reply, she heard an anxious voice, "Chinwan? Are you, Chinwan?" Chinwan turned his head and looked over. He saw a young man in his 20s, wearing a beige sweater and a black coat. He was elegant, wearing a pair of glasses. Chinwan looked confused. "Who are you?" "It's me, Qin Wenzhou, from class 1, grade 1, middle school." "Monitor, it's you, long time no see," Wan had an idea, stood up and hugged him, lowering her voice, "Pretend to be my ex-boyfriend." Squad leader. After Wan let go of Wenzo, she looked regretful and said, "If I had known that you had successfully lost weight and were a potential stock, I wouldn't have broken up with you back then." The squad leader is a wonderful person, but he misunderstood the relationship between Wan and Rong Li. Anyone who can be the squad leader is a social cow. I regret it. You abandoned me back then and blocked me. I gave you a chance to renew our relationship. The squad leader took out his mobile phone and Wan added him as a friend. "You are much more handsome now than you were in high school. You are much more beautiful too. I dare not recognize you. Are you no longer short-sighted?" "I wear contact lenses." "Oh." The monitor said in amazement, "Very good looking, with big and round eyes. There will be a high school reunion after the new year, and I will call you." "Okay, let's call him." "Okay." Rong Li crossed his arms and watched a different scene of the reunion between the male and female protagonists of youth pain literature. His eyes were so cold that they could freeze people. Wan was used to his cold face. There was no emotion at all and he proudly showed off, "This is mine, my first love, the class monitor in the first year of high school, so handsome." Wan turned around and saw the class monitor's table. He and a girl were eating, and he even gave a girl some meatballs. Handsome and considerate. Ah! End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 712. Chapter 712. Our zodiac sign is not suitable. Wan actually didn't remember much about her freshman year of high school. She was too busy and kept to herself, but she did remember the monitor. Coincidentally, the monitor actually wrote a love letter to her. In high school, the monitor was a little chubby and lively. Cheerful, Wan is the school beauty. She doesn't socialize much with others, but she is good at playing basketball. Therefore, she is liked by a group of boys in the class. They all regard her as a goddess. On the contrary, girls don't like to play with her, so Wan hangs out with everyone. She was a boy, and the class monitor actually wrote her a love letter. Wan didn't read the love letter because she was jealous of the girls at that time. When the class monitor handed the love letter, someone saw it and posted it on the blackboard. The whole class knew about it. Death, and looking forward to Wan's response. At that time, Wan and the squad leader had played basketball many times and they were very friendly. Wan refused because he didn't want to fall in love early. Later, the squad leader chased her and fought her for a while. Wan said, "I like girls who are sweet and soft." Wan looked back at the squad leader again. She really didn't expect that after losing weight, Xiaopang Dun could be regarded as a potential stock and quite delicate. This was the third time she looked back at the squad leader. Rong Li narrowed her eyes. Rong Li lowered his head to read the phone and commented viciously, "My facial features are ordinary, I have a pedestal. Now I am working as a director at a TV station, with a monthly salary of 13,000 yuan before tax. I just bought a small house of 50 square meters, but, I bought a car worth 400,000 yuan, dated 4 girlfriends in a year, and now I'm seeing 2 girlfriends at the same time." Wan. Rong Li raised his head and concluded calmly, "You have poor vision, and your first love software and hardware are both terrible. There is something wrong with you. Why are you investigating?" Wan gritted his teeth and lowered his voice, "You are crazy. Ah, I'm afraid you'll be a scumbag because of your momentary infatuation." Rong Li put down his phone. "After all, you think he looks handsome. I doubt your aesthetics and taste. You want to be his third girlfriend from first love to fifth love." Wan slammed the table and almost knocked out all the butter in the hot pot. "Do you want to fight?" People around me were startled and thought it was a quarrel between boyfriend and girlfriend. The brothers next door almost said, "Brother, calm down. If your girlfriend throws hot pot ingredients in your face, you will be disfigured. When girls saw Rong Li's appearance, their eyes were filled with excitement. One woman said in front of her boyfriend, "If my boyfriend has such good looks and figure, I will support him as his ancestor. If he talks loudly, it's because I'm not gentle, okay? How dare you scold? Boyfriend." Rong Li was calmer than anyone else, and even took out a tissue to wipe the back of his hand that was splashed. "Are you angry from shame?" Rong Li was so angry that he couldn't bear to die and asked with a smile. Qin Wan was furious and looked up at the camera in the store, thinking about how to avoid the camera and beat him up. "Do you still want to rekindle the old relationship?" Rong Li asked. Qin Wan. She really wants to beat Rong Li. Qin Wan took a deep breath and remembered that she had witnessed Rong Li's blind date. Opposite him was a model who was almost 1.8 meters tall. She was really good looking and had a good temper. She was an international supermodel. However, Rong Li asked questions when they went on a blind date. People's zodiac signs. Sagittarius, Rong Li said lightly, "Sagittarius and I are incompatible, we are not suitable." The supermodels across from him were stunned and looked at him in astonishment. Qin Wan happened to be drinking coffee next door and almost burst out laughing. She thought that this person was too good at giving reasons to refuse the blind date. Only now did she realize that this was the truth. She is a Sagittarius, and she is in conflict with Rong Li. Moi. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 713. Chapter 713 Celebrate the New Year together? 2 days before the Chinese New Year, many companies are on holiday. Black Eagle and Jidot are also on holiday. Gu Ziyu and Gu Ci will be busy until their 30s. The Zhang family has given away all the New Year gifts that need to be given to each family. Gifts were delivered, and the house was cleaned in preparation for the New Year. Mrs. Zhang wrote 2 couplets and pasted them on them, and hung up red lanterns. The Zhang family's New Year celebrations were still very traditional. Ji Sun spent the New Year alone in Haikan, and the old lady felt very distressed. Junlin, the Lu family is here for dinner at noon on New Year's Eve. After dinner, you can go to Haikan to celebrate the New Year with Xiao Sun. He doesn't want to spend the New Year alone in other places. It's appropriate. Since he is busy, you should accommodate him. Zhang Junlin said calmly, "I understand." Lin Chunli saw some clues, but Zhang Junlin didn't say anything. She felt that even if they quarreled, it wouldn't be serious, so she didn't take it to heart. She also secretly asked Gu Ziyu, who often quarreled over small things. The intervention of outsiders only adds to the chaos, leaving them to solve it themselves. The Zhang family wants Ji Sun to come back to celebrate the New Year. The Wang family and the Sheng family also want Ji Sun to come back to celebrate the New Year. The Wang family also invited the 2 elders of the Sheng family and Sheng Yuan to come to their home to celebrate the New Year. The population of the Sheng family is relatively simple. Now they are a family of 3. Sheng Yuan has not yet. She was in love and had children, and had been living abroad for more than 20 years. She rarely moved around with relatives. The Sheng family declined the invitation and made an appointment to contact relatives in the Sheng family on the 2nd day of the Lunar New Year. Haikan. Unlike the cold weather in City A, the sun is shining brightly in Haikan. Ji Xian is on a business trip as an excuse and has a lot of free time. He sails out on the sea alone. Nick and other guards do not dare to disturb him. He is wearing a floral shirt and shorts and is sitting on the boat. Basking in the sun and drinking beer, I felt quite at ease. Nick and the guards did not dare to say a word. Even a blind person could tell that Ji Sun was unhappy. He stayed on the boat for a whole day, fishing, drinking, basking in the sun during the day, and sleeping at night. It was rare for him to live a leisurely life without caring about anything else. But his mood was extremely bad, like a balloon that had inflated to its peak and was about to explode if he blew it again. No one dared to mess with him. With the new year approaching, there were still many things to do. The Wang family and the Sheng family all came to greet him, so he had to be patient and return. He didn't want others to know that he and Zhang Junlin had quarreled. The main reason was that he didn't want the Wang family to protect Zhang Junlin and embarrass Zhang Junlin. Years ago, Zhang Junlin also held many meetings, and he might meet someone from the Wang family. Nick doesn't really want him to live at sea until the new year. Master, it's better to spend New Year's Eve on the shore. It's always unlucky to spend New Year's Eve at sea. What good luck is there to celebrate the new year alone? Ji Xian said lightly. Looking at the calm sea, his mood became even worse. When he was an orphan, he celebrated the new year alone. Now that he has so many relatives and friends, he still has to celebrate the new year alone. The excitement of the new year has nothing to do with him. Go and admit your mistake to Zhang Junlin? Ji Huan wanted to call Zhang Junlin countless times, but held back. This felt too familiar to him. He had already coaxed Zhang Junlin into several sets of procedures. If this one didn't work, there was always another way. If you can get through it, you have been dancing in Zhang Junlin's minefield for so many years, and you know where the bottom line is. If you know it, why do you still commit it? But Ji Sun was also aggrieved. The accident in his childhood and his experiences in his youth had developed his paranoid temperament, and his low self-esteem was always with him. He saw a psychiatrist many times but to no avail. He always felt that two beautiful feelings were like floating clouds. It's beautiful, but it's easy to fall apart. He doesn't believe in life, and he doesn't believe that someone will love him for life, but he is obsessed with it for life. The obsessions and hopes in his heart, conflicts, like ice and fire, collided in his heart countless times, but it did not cultivate the soil for Ji Sun to devote himself to one person. He always thought that one day, others would abandon him. In the boundless night, he reconciled himself and tortured himself, repeating it back and forth, like a dead end with no flowers, only blood and tears. Have they reached a dead end? Ji Sun didn't dare to make this call, fearing that the cold voice would tell him that we should stay apart for a while to calm down. Brother doesn't have a single phone call. Not a single text message. He was really angry. Ji Xian looked at the chat history on his phone with frustration. The last one was clearly about "I like you very sweetly, so why did it end up like this?" Master, why don't we go ashore? Ji Sun held a bottle of beer and was silent for a long time. Forget it, let's dock and go to the house on Wuling Road. Yes. Ji Sun went ashore and bought a bouquet of flowers from the flower shop next to the pier to take home. In fact, he was not alone during the new year. Nick and others were around. Nick knew that he was not in a happy mood. Master, Heiken, there is also a Oktoberfest during the Chinese New Year. Do you want to participate on New Year's Eve? Or we can have hot pot at home and buy some fireworks to celebrate the new year. Can fireworks be set off in the city? You can watch it at home. We'll put it on the beach so you can see it. The house was only 400 meters from the sea, which was very close. Heiken was a small island surrounded by water and had a very long coastline. Nick tried his best to make Ji Xian happy. I ordered a golden red one from the fireworks factory. Fireworks, after the fireworks explode, there is a phoenix, the master will definitely like it. Ji Sun raised his eyebrows, showing some interest. Okay, let's go to the Oktoberfest first, and then come back to watch the new year and set off fireworks. Anyway, one should be happy when celebrating the new year alone. Okay, let's do it. Seeing that he was finally happy, Nick couldn't help but start planning. He wished that the entire New Year's Eve schedule would be full so that Ji Sun would have no time to be sad. New Year's Eve and Christmas are originally the most unhappy days for Ji-sun in previous years. Before they were together, he was not happy that he could not spend Christmas with Jang Junlin and his birthday. He was always alone on New Year's Eve, with only Conway and Rong Li around him, and he was not happy either. These 2 days are the days that Ji Xian least wants to spend in a year. City A. The day before New Year's Eve, Zhang Junlin accompanied Lin Chunli, and Zhang Minghua went to his maternal grandfather's house. On the way back, Zhang Qiang drove the car, with a guard in the passenger seat, and Zhang Junlin sat behind the car. Zhang Qiang asked, "Master, how much does it cost to buy the plane tomorrow?" Zhang Junlin looked out the window, and the scenery kept passing by. He promised that his family would go to Haikan to spend New Year's Eve with Ji-sun, but he hadn't booked a ticket yet. Zhang Qiang naturally felt that he would make a reservation at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. A private plane has to leave on New Year's Eve, and it has to go out of its way to open a route. Generally, it is necessary to open a private route many days in advance. It is very difficult to open a route temporarily. Zhang Junlin's identity is no problem in opening a route temporarily, but he doesn't want to waste time, that is, to fly the plane is gone. Zhang Qiang looked at the flight schedule and said, "There are 3 flights from 3 to 4 p.m., and it will be almost 6 p.m. to reach City A." He thinks this time period is just right. Zhang Junlin was silent for a long time and said calmly, "I won't go to Haikan." Zhang Qiang. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 714. Chapter 714. There's a good show to watch. On New Year's Eve, Lu Ziwen went to the hospital to pick up Gu Si in the morning. The car was parked in the parking lot downstairs. He didn't take any of his guards with him. The guards had arranged other tasks, so they wouldn't have to follow him around the clock in the future. Gu Si, as soon as he saw him, all the fatigue in his body disappeared, and he laughed happily. Lu Ziwen reached out to hug her, but Gu Si avoided him. Lu Ziwen. Gu Si brushed her messy hair and said, "I haven't showered in 2 days." Since she was always at work, her body was covered in bacteria and sweat. Lu Ziwen smiled and pulled her into his arms. "It smells like porcelain, it doesn't stink at all." "That's because your sense of smell is broken." Lu Ziwen lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. "Let's go home." "Want to pick up Ziyu?" "Whatever he picks up, he takes a taxi himself." Conway also has a holiday. Zhou Shiwen started his vacation yesterday and will not resume work until the 7th day of the lunar month. Gu Ziyu is rooted in the bureau and has food and accommodation with Chen Liangdong, so he is very safe. Gu Si secretly thought, no wonder Xia Zhao said that the treatment of tool workers was gone, and it turned out to be true. Burn the bridge across the river. She sent a text message to Ziyu and asked him when he would get off work. Gu Ziyu would be busy until 11:30 and had time to go home for lunch. Lu Ziwen sent Gu Si home first. The Zhang family was already very busy and Lu Ziyi was already here. Brought several boxes of New Year gifts, and had been drinking tea and chatting with the old man for a long time. Zhang Junlin was at home, and the kitchen was busy preparing the New Year's Eve dinner. Because Gu Si was quite busy, the engagement was waived. They went directly to the wedding process. The 2 families had a meal together on New Year's Eve, and it was settled. Therefore, the gifts brought by the Lu family were particularly heavy. They came according to the engagement ceremony. Many jewelry were left by Lu Ziwen's mother. Lu Ziyi jumped into a few pieces and sent them to Gu Si. They were all rare items. Zhang Junlin was not in a good mood. Lu Ziyi secretly asked the old man, "Why is Junlin so straight-faced?" "Not satisfied with my 3rd child. He's always had this face, don't worry about him," the old man said. After Gu Si and Lu Ziwen arrived home, Gu Si went upstairs to take a shower and change clothes before coming down. Zhang Junlin entertained Lu Ziwen. The two obviously didn't play well, so they didn't chat for a few words. The old lady also brought the chessboard over and said, "Don't you guys, let's talk and play chess." Zhang Junlin did not refuse, but he knew that he could not beat Lu Ziwen. Lu Ziwen could beat Mr. Wang in Go, so he was naturally no match for him. However, Go was time-consuming and he was not a beginner, so it was indeed suitable for them. The two of them drank tea and played chess quietly. The elders ignored them and waited for Gu Ci to come down. "I heard that you are going to Hiken after lunch," Lu Ziwen couldn't hide the gloating in his tone. After Zhang Junlin gave birth to a son, he said indifferently, "Who said that?" "What Ziyu said." Zhang Junlin's eyes flashed and he frowned slightly. Ziyu's mouth was indeed very tight when it should be tight, but sometimes it was like a colander. He and Ji-sun talked about everything, so Ji-sun knew that he wanted to went to Hiken. He hasn't bought a plane ticket yet and has no plans to go to Hiken. He just wants to cooperate with Ji-sun in the play, so he just agreed with his family. "Your news is out of date." Zhang Junlin waited for Lu Ziwen to make a move, then he held the chess and pondered, where should he play? Ji Xian knew he was going to Hiken, but he didn't see him on New Year's Eve. He should be sad. Lu Ziwen finally figured it out. This man's heart was as solid as stone. This time Ji-sun was so pitiful that he was not going to take the bait. This was a trick that Zhang Junlin could see through at a glance. Ji-sun was able to succeed repeatedly because of Zhang Junlin's willingness to take the bait. That's all. Zhang Junlin was unwilling to take the bait, so this move seemed childish. Lu Ziwen secretly thought that Gu Ziyue should have shared with Ji-sun the news that Zhang Junlin was going to Hiken, but Zhang Junlin did not go. "Come on, there's a good show to watch. Try to update as many as possible tomorrow." End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 715. Chapter 715 The Tough Brother. Because it was New Year's Eve, Zhang Junlin and Lu Ziwen were both discerning people, so they would not say anything offensive to the scenery. Gu Ci took a shower, slept for an hour and went downstairs. She put on a little makeup and wore a light yellow dress. Her hair was also tied up, she put on earrings and necklaces, and went downstairs fully dressed. Gu Ci is a beauty with rich face. Even if she has a cold temperament, she can't hide her rich face. She dresses up like a big star walking on the red carpet. Gu Ziyue happened to come home and saw Gu Ci coming down the stairs. "Wow, Mom, fairy. She's so beautiful. It's always appropriate to wear heavy makeup." Lu Ziwen also saw Gu Ci at the first sight. His words were snatched away by his son. He could only smile and look at Gu Ci. She was indeed very beautiful. She has always been wearing a white coat this year. In summer, she wears t-shirts and jeans, and in winter, she wears sweaters. Jeans, no makeup, she hasn't dressed up for a long time, but suddenly she looks amazing when dressed up. Gu Ziyue's eyes were shining. "I followed my mother's template to find a girlfriend." Lu Ziwen clicked his tongue. "Hey, aren't you clamoring for a boyfriend? If you look like this, I wouldn't mind if you're a man." Everybody. Tong Yanwuji made everyone laugh. Gu Ziyue also laughed at Zhang Junlin and Gu Ci for being a beauty control person. Isn't he also a standard beauty control person? Everyone was laughing. Only Lu Ziyi asked in confusion, "Why did Ziyue call Ziyu's mother?" Everybody. Good question. Lu Ziwen said calmly, "He is used to it." Mr. Zhang laughed loudly, always feeling a little embarrassed. Gu Ziyue chuckled and said, "Grandpa, you are here too. Is this tea delicious? This rock tea is authentic and fragrant. I was just wondering where to buy it from. I also want to buy a pound. This tea is specially made. You can't buy it outside." Knowing that you love tea, I specially asked for 2 kilograms so you can try it on New Year's Eve. I've wrapped the rest and you can take it away later, Gu Ziyu explained with a smile. Ziyu is so considerate. Lu Ziwen looked at his father, who was so moved that he almost cried. He wanted to tell him that Gu Ziyu was not considerate at all. His gifts were all wholesale, and the tea he gave to everyone was just different varieties. Zhang Junlin covered his mouth and smiled, but did not reveal the scene of loving kindness and filial piety. The last time Gu Ziyu and Chen Liangdong went on a business trip, they learned that there was a batch of special tea leaves, so they ordered 7 or 8 kilograms of them. These tea varieties were very good, and he gave a kilogram of each as gifts to the elders in his family. It's almost wholesale for everyone. When he talked to Lu Ziyi, his emotional intelligence was very high. Lu Ziwen didn't try to make trouble, and others would not make trouble if they were guilty. Gu Ziyu always gave gifts wholesale. In his words, the young master would be satisfied with a bowl of water. No one is partial. Before he went upstairs, he couldn't help but hug Gu Ci and said, "Happy New Year, Mom." "Happy New Year, baby." Lu Ziwen twitched the corners of his lips, and the brat finished his words. As soon as Gu Ziyu came back, the Zhang family became very lively, chatting and laughing. Gu Ziyu changed clothes and came down to accompany Lu Ziyi. Chatting with the old man, Lu Ziyi said, "Go over there, what's the point of chatting with our old man?" Gu Ziyu glanced at Lu Ziwen and Zhang Junlin playing chess. "They are even more boring and don't talk. Gu Ziyu is actually best at dealing with the elderly. After all, he is led by Chen Liangdong and often interacts with a group of elderly people, all of whom are high-ranking people. I feel much more comfortable at home, and it's Chinese New Year again." Gu Ziyu picked up his phone and took a short video of Ji Sun first. The video stayed on Zhang Junlin for 10 seconds. After sending it, he said Happy New Year and asked Ji Sun what he was doing. "Stay at home. Ji Sun is really lying dead at home. The Oktoberfest is arranged in the evening, held at the beach and New Year's Eve together. Because it is New Year's Eve, today is a family reunion. There is no festival during the day and there is very little traffic on the street." Ji Sun and others Zhang Junlin came to Haikan to celebrate the New Year with him. Ever since Gu Ziyu said that Zhang Junlin was coming to Haikan, he had been looking forward to it, but Zhang Junlin hadn't said a word to him yet. There was not even a single blessing on New Year's Eve, and he was not included in the group messages. Gu Ziyu chatted with Ji Sun for a few words. When he saw that he was talking about him, he shook his head and asked Zhang Junlin in a loud voice, "Uncle, what time is your flight in the afternoon?" The Zhang family all knew that he was going to Haikan. Zhang Junlin was still thinking of saying something perfunctory, but Lu Ziwen said, "He is not going to Haikan, and he hasn't bought a ticket yet." "Gu Ziyu, what should I do, brother? Isn't he going to spend the New Year alone? Why did you change your mind? There is nothing going on at home." Zhang Junlin looked at Lu Ziwen expressionlessly. He knew where Gu Ziyu inherited his colander. As expected, as soon as Lu Ziwen finished speaking, the old lady asked, "Why don't Junlin go to Haikan? What's the matter temporarily, something? If you don't go to Haikan, it would be pitiful for Xiaoxian to spend the New Year alone in Haikan." Lu Ziwen fell down, and Gu Ci sat next to him. Knowing that he was doing it on purpose, he pinched his waist. Lu Ziwen felt pain, but did not show it. He must have been bruised by Gu Ci's pinch. What a cruel attack! Gu Ci glared at Lu Ziwen. He really didn't want to open any pot. Lu Ziwen stared at her hand that was twisting his waist and refused to let go. He was about to get bruised from being twisted. Gu Ci warned him not to talk nonsense anymore. "Junlin, what do you need at the moment?" Lin Chunli also asked. Zhang Junlin said calmly, "It's nothing, I don't want to go out." Everybody. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 716. Chapter 716, A Sudden Turn of Events. Lu Ziwen thought to himself, okay, you are awesome. Gu Ziyu hesitated to speak. He stared at Ji Xian on the chat page and asked what time his uncle's flight was. He fell into silence. How should he tell his brother that his uncle didn't want to go to Hiken, and he suddenly changed his mind? It's not that Gu Ziyu is a colander. He usually doesn't like to talk about this uncertain thing, but it's not a business matter, it's just a family matter. That day, he and Ji Sun were video chatting, and Ji Sun was at sea, drinking. After drinking a lot of wine, Gu Ziyu thought that he was drinking to drown his sorrows. In order to make him happy, he said that Zhang Junlin was going to Hiken on New Year's Eve. This was what everyone in the family said. How did Gu Ziyu know that his uncle would change his mind? How should I tell my brother about this? What about Xiaoxian? The old lady was quite worried. Can I still make it back in time to celebrate the new year? I have to ask Lu Ziwen. President Blackhawk is so busy he has to go to Hiken on a business trip during the Chinese New Year. Lu Ziwen spread his hands and said, I don't know. I've resigned. Xiaoxian is young, loves to show off, and works hard. Chang Junlin. Good for you. Gu Ci has never participated in such lawsuits. When a young couple quarrels, it is best for outsiders not to interfere. However, Gu Ziyu is very embarrassed. He suddenly thought, how about I buy a plane ticket to go to Hiken to celebrate the new year with my brother? I'm free. Want to go out? No, several people in the family refused in unison. Gu Ziyu. He is very free and can go out alone. Why not? You are still young, so we are worried about celebrating the new year alone, the old man said with a smile. Junlin, you really don't want to go out? Chang Junlin remained silent, which meant he acquiesced. The elders looked at each other and confirmed their suspicions. Sure enough, there was a quarrel, and they did not get involved in the children's quarrel. Ziyu, you haven't been so busy during the Chinese New Year in previous years. Are there too many things this year? Zhang Minghua asked. They would not inquire about specific work matters. Gu Ziyu had an idea and said about a young brother in their team, I am now in charge of a team, all of which are young postdocs. They have been busy with work in the past 2 years and they are all single. In the second half of this year, there will be a big show of ULO matchmaking. Everyone is in love, but things get piled up together. There was a young brother who had a fight with his girlfriend. Because he was secretly sent on a business trip, he broke up without replying to text messages or phone calls for 4 days. His girlfriend said that there was no news for 3 days. Is it unfair to break up by default? He coaxed his girlfriend to go to work as soon as he came back from the business trip, and I was forced to work overtime. He paused and asked Gu Ci, Mom, do young people these days break up by default if they don't reply to text messages or call for 3 or 4 days? Gu Ci secretly thought that the boy's mentality was really like a honeycomb now, and Gu Ci didn't try to make trouble. There is a vague saying. Lu Ziwen and Zhang Junlin were playing chess, looking back at each other with two minds. I never go 3 days without replying to text messages or calling, right? Gu Ci. You guys are singing in harmony. Do you think my brother cares about you? Zhang Junlin responded, stop talking nonsense, it's your turn. Chang Junlin was playing Go, but he couldn't beat Lu Ziwen for another 10 years. He lost both games quickly, and the subsequent games were even more messy. Gu Ci said considerately, brother is tired, let me play with him. Lu Ziyi and the old man both talked about the wedding, so this move could not be made. The two families discussed the details of the wedding. Lu Ziwen and Gu Ci both wanted to hold the wedding in June. The date of their wedding was decided by them. The date was chosen by Lu Ziwen after combining his horoscopes. No one thought that he would be so futile. They actually looked at the horoscopes to choose a day and chose a day within a year. We have a wedding in June, the weather is a bit hot. The wedding venue is at the Global Arts Center, which is a big place. Lu Ziwen took care of the decoration. The wedding dress can be made in March, and there is also a dragon and phoenix wedding dress in ancient costume, which should also be made in May. Okay, Lu Ziwen came up with the design of this wedding dress very early, so when he decided to hold the wedding, he left it to the master to rush the work. After these are agreed upon, there are only details, such as bride price, dowry, guests, etc. Many details have to be decided by the bride and groom. Gu Si will be busy until late March, and Lu Ziwen can only do the hard work alone. If you can help me, please call Junlin, the old man said. Zhang Junlin didn't say anything. There was no problem in calling him for his sister's wedding. Lu Ziwen had already chosen the best man. Ji Xian and Rong Li were both best men. Li Zhang and 2 guards were also selected. The bridesmaids were Zhou Jinjin and Qin Wan. There were still 3 candidates left. Gu Si turned around and asked her colleagues in the hospital or her classmates. There were quite a few candidates, but she had not chosen yet. She was still very cautious in this regard. Then, Gu Zia was chosen as the flower girl to give the ring. Lu Zi suddenly said, "Isn't this flower girl a little big? By the time the wedding is held in June, Gu Zia will probably reach 1.8 meters tall. I have never seen such a big flower girl at the wedding who can be the best man." Gu Si and Lu Ziwen looked at each other and smiled. "It doesn't matter, I want him." Gu Zia was beaming. He gave the ring to his parents when they got married. He was naturally very happy and had a sense of ceremony. It was rare for a child to have such a sense of ceremony. Gu Zia was the one who suggested the flower girl. Lu Ziwen thought he was too old at the time. Being a flower girl was not suitable and was rejected by Gu Si, so Gu Zia was asked to do it. The 2 families discussed the wedding, and the food was prepared. They had a lively reunion dinner, drank tea together after the meal, and then opened a table of mahjong. Zhang Minghua accompanied his parents, Lu Zi played mahjong, and the young people had their own fun. When Gu Zi met Zhang Junlin, he really had no intention of going to Hiken. He was a little anxious. His brother was still waiting. How disappointed he would be if his uncle didn't go. Zhang Junlin drank some wine at noon and was slightly tipsy. He went upstairs to rest. Gu Zia poked Gu Si, "You really don't want to go?" "Really?" Gu Si asked Lu Ziwen. "Ji Sun didn't call or send a text message." "I don't know," asked Gu Zia. Gu Zia shook his head. "Ignoring each other is very courageous." In Gu Zia's opinion, he is quite courageous and promising. Hiken, Ji Xian woke up from a nap and it was already afternoon. At noon, I had a hot pot meal with the guards. Perhaps because I was in a good mood, I drank a lot of wine. After Ji Sun's gastric perforation surgery, he especially controlled the amount of alcohol he drank. He did not drink any non-essential social activities unless he was with his boss. When socializing with other people, you must drink, and you should pay special attention to drinking. In the past few years, I only drank too much when I was socializing with President Wang and President Gu. I found out today that Zhang Junlin was coming to Hiken. I was so happy while having hot pot at noon that I drank too much without realizing it. His guards were all very good drinkers, and Nick was even more so. 2 of the guards did not drink at all. The others were drinking with Ji Sun, mixing in white beers. Ji Sun was a little drunk, so Nick helped him go upstairs to sleep. Ji Sun's wine was pretty good, and he would not act like crazy even if he drank too much. When he woke up, the curtains were drawn twice, and the room was very dark. For a moment, he thought it was night. He hurriedly looked at the time, which was 3 in the afternoon, and then he felt an overwhelming feeling of nausea. He rushed to the toilet and vomited quickly, and the dull pain spread. He was woken up by the pain, and there were heart-burning pains in his stomach. Ji Xian sat next to the toilet in the bathroom, sweating. Severe pain tortured his nerves. Ji Sun only felt that his head hurt, and everything in his body hurt. Nick heard the noise and came over a long time ago, and was startled. "Master, what's wrong with you?" Ji Xian covered his stomach and shouted that it hurt. Without saying a word, Nick picked him up and walked downstairs quickly. While jogging, he called the guard to prepare the car to go to the hospital. The guard downstairs was not drunk and was still playing guessing games. While playing, I saw Nick carrying Ji Sun downstairs, and he instantly got into working mode. Nick took Ji Sun to the nearest hospital and sent him to the emergency room. In the Zhang family, the elders were having a great time playing mahjong. Zhang Junlin was sleeping slightly drunk upstairs. It seemed that he did not intend to go to Hiken. Gu Zio sighed sadly, "I will never draw cakes for my brother blindly again." Originally, he didn't expect his uncle to go, so he blamed me for being too talkative. It's okay that he didn't expect it, but if he did expect it, it wouldn't be a sin. You also know that your mouth is like a colander, Lu Ziwen couldn't help but complain. How do I know that my uncle can still go back on his word? As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Zhang Junlin walking downstairs like a gust of wind, making a phone call as he walked, as if he was asking someone to set up a temporary route. He hadn't put on his coat yet, so he only had time to say, "I went out and won't be back at night." Zhang Qiang and others followed him, and within 3 minutes, no one was there. Gu Zio said, "Ah, there are twists and turns." Lu Ziwen's phone vibrated. He squinted at the message from Rong Li. His face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. He cursed in a rare way, "This idiot." End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 717. Chapter 717. The Sick Beauty and the Boss. Zhang Junlin went to Hiken. The flight took 2.5 hours. Before the plane landed, Nick called Lu Ziwen. Ji Sun suffered from acute gastroenteritis, which attacks quickly. There are clinical signs of gastric bleeding, mainly due to excessive drinking. Lu Ziwen cursed in his heart, but didn't show it on his face. "Take good care of him." "Yes." Nick just reported Ji Sun's situation, but Lu Ziwen couldn't hold it back and told him that Zhang Junlin had gone to Hiken. On the way to send Ji Sun to Nick, Ji Sun showed some signs of vomiting blood, which frightened him, so as soon as he went to the emergency room, Nick notified Zhang Junlin first, and Rong Li happened to ask Ji Sun something. When Nick answered the phone, Nick was shocked, and then he remembered to tell Lu Ziwen and Rong Li. Lin Chunli asked worriedly, "What's wrong with Xiaoxian?" Zhang Junlin came out in such a hurry, something must have happened. He drank some wine and felt sick to his stomach. "It's nothing serious," Lu Ziwen said lightly. He was celebrating the new year and did not worry his family. "I must have drank too much at the party again," Zhang Minghua said. "Xiaoxian is still a bit greedy." Junlin looked so anxious. "Is it really nothing serious?" "It's just inflammation, nothing serious." Lu Ziwen was unsure for a moment. Nick said it was an emergency and it was not fatal, so it should be fine. Ji Sun's illness is acute. It comes quickly but goes away slowly. He is receiving infusions in the emergency department. The conditions of Hiken Central Hospital are not as good as those of City A, and the medical conditions here are not as good as those of City A. It is the best hospital in the province. It was even more crowded than a supermarket during the Chinese New Year, and many emergency rooms were still waiting in the ward. There was no room for Ji Sun. There were many people waiting at the emergency room door. A delivery boy had a car accident and his arms were covered. He was dripping with blood. He had no time to push into the operating room, so he treated the wound outside the emergency room. He was not old yet, and he was suffering and howling. The entire emergency room was in a mess. Those who were more serious than Ji Xian were still looking for a ward. An old couple waiting for a CT scan at the entrance of the emergency room. It is said that no one paid attention to the wait all morning. Nick didn't understand why the CT and the emergency room were arranged together, so the operating room was crowded and there were patients everywhere. 8 of their guards came. The doctors and nurses complained a lot when they were blocking other people's wheelchairs when they were standing in front of the emergency room. Nick stuffed his money in the hope that the doctor could arrange an operating room, but there was really no way. Black Hawk did not have the resources in Haiken Central Hospital. Due to the development of Haiken in recent years, Black Hawk allocated an operating room to the company is established here, and the network has not yet been established. They are mainly engaged in finance, and there are barriers to medical treatment. Unlike in City A, the Liu family has a hospital. The doctor refused to accept the red envelope at all and said bluntly, "Even if you give me a year's salary, I won't be able to create a ward for you." There are many people outside the emergency room waiting to be arranged. The gastroenterology wards are basically overcrowded during the season, and many people are queuing up to get in. The nurse couldn't take care of them. When the doctor saw that 7 or 8 of them were family members, he drove them out. Only one person was left to take care of Ji Sun. It was too much in the way. A guard helped Ji Sun sit down. He was drowsily injecting fluids on the cold chair. It seemed that the potion would not be finished in 7 or 8 hours. Nick would not let Kono leave no matter what. Therefore, there was a group of tall guards guarding Ji Sun at the entrance of the emergency room. It was extremely crowded and had to give way to patients and doctors. Nick had never been so aggrieved. Even if a plane was arranged for Ji Sun to return to City A, he still had to wait. Ji Sun's infusion is over, otherwise Ji Sun would be uncomfortable. Ji Sun was groggy and had a splitting headache. He asked Nick to stop pestering the doctor. If there was no ward, there would be no ward. Nick didn't want to see Ji Sun suffer, so he insisted on pestering the doctor. The doctor was very busy and gave him a small bed. The small bed was placed outside the emergency room, allowing Ji Sun to lie down for infusion. The cubicles outside the emergency room were all filled with small beds like this. Ji Sun didn't want to choose. Sitting there was really uncomfortable, and she still felt heartburn. The inflammation was not there yet. Going down. But lying down is also uncomfortable. He is 1.9 meters tall. This small bed is for ordinary patients to lie down for infusion. Even a man of 1.7 meters has no room to lie down, let alone Ji Sun. There is no place for his long legs. Ji Sun he curled up into a ball and lay like a shrimp. Nick felt guilty just looking at him. A group of them gathered around Ji Sun, who was really too conspicuous. There were too many patients outside the emergency room and the place was crowded. Several family members had objections. Nick did not quarrel with anyone, but tried his best to smile, and then winked and asked the 2 guards to I went to help the elderly who were not accompanied by their family members to handle some trivial matters. Some people didn't even know how to sign in, so they just waited. After waiting for 3 or 4 hours, the system was very confusing. With Ji Xian, Ji Sun rolled up into a shrimp and was infusion, and fell asleep soon. He slept very soundly despite this messy environment. This year was probably the worst year for him. Nick regretted it. If he had known better, he would not have drank so much. Too much wine. In fact, Lu Ziwen told him at noon that Zhang Junlin might not come to Haiken, and asked Nick to find an opportunity to tell Ji Sun. He was afraid that Ji Sun would be too disappointed. Nick was so entangled that he didn't pay attention at noon and drank more with him. Cup, Ji Sun was quite happy when he was drunk. Normally Ji Sun would fall asleep when he was drunk and not too noisy. Who knew something like this would happen? After the operation, his stomach was in good condition. He had not had any illness in the past few years. He had an endoscopy every year. He had only a few minor problems but no major problems. He had never had any problems while drinking. It's his fault for letting down his guard. This is definitely a dereliction of duty on his part. Jang Junlin called Nick as soon as the plane landed. After asking for the address, he came to Haikan Hospital. Jang Junlin led Zhang Qiang and his entourage in a mighty manner. The group walked with wind, just like the gangsters in the movies. The return rate is 100%, and there is no room to stand at the entrance of the emergency room. It is so crowded that Zhang Junlin sees Nick and others at a glance. This group of strong men with an average height of over 185 is too big among the group of patients in the emergency room. Eye-catching. Mr. Zhang, Nick shouted guiltily. Zhang Junlin nodded. As soon as Nick stepped aside, he saw Ji-sun huddled up. His face was as white as paper, his lips were bloodless, and his hair was wet with cold sweat. Zhang Junlin felt slightly suffocated and squatted down. Looking at him, such a big man huddled on this small bed, he looked even more pitiful. He brought a group of people to the entrance of the emergency room. There were a lot of patients and it was very crowded. There were more than a dozen strong men standing there, which was quite scary. Curses, complaints, and urgings mingled together, and it became so noisy. Even though Ji Huan didn't wake up, Zhang Junlin's fire was burning little by little, touching Ji Huan's pale face, and then extinguished little by little. Zhang Qiang, take the people out and ask the contact person for a ward. If that doesn't work, we'll transfer him to another hospital. Yes. Zhang Qiang and Nick quickly gathered together, leaving 2 people on both sides. The others went out, Nick stayed, and Zhang Qiang went to do things. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 718. Chapter 718. Are you still angry? Ji Dao also has no medical resources in Haikan. Fortunately, Zhang Junlin still has enough connections. The Dean of Haikan Central Hospital and the Dean of Nanjing Hospital are alumni, so they squeezed out a single ward. Most hospitals will leave 1 or 2 wards are provided in case of emergency. Haikan Hospital is quite special. There are really many patients and the medical resources are not particularly rich. It is not easy to squeeze out a ward, and it is not a suite. After having the ward, Ji-sun no longer had to crowd at the emergency door. Zhang Junlin picked him up. Nick took the potion hanging on the bracket and went to the ward together. It was noisy above and there were people next door. It was obvious that this ward had just been vacated. Yes, some things were not cleaned up. Zhang Junlin didn't care about it, so that Ji-sun could lie down more comfortably. He just carried Ji-sun all the way. When Ji-sun lay down, he didn't wake up. Zhang Junlin frowned. Very worried. Nick said, I have sent my master's case to the gastroenterology department of the Central Hospital, and the medication has been carefully explained. There is no problem with the diagnosis and medication. I know. Zhang Junlin asked Nick and others to go out so as not to disturb Ji-sun. Seeing that he was still huddled in a ball and occasionally shaking, Zhang Junlin covered him with a quilt, took off his coat, and covered him too. The heart that had been hanging all the way finally dropped. He held Ji-sun's hand that was not infused. The temperature in Haikan was 26 degrees in the evening, but Ji-sun's hand was as cold as ice. Zhang Junlin wrapped his hand and looked at him intently. Ji-sun was lying on his side, half open, his face was pressed against the pillow, looking quite pitiful. Zhang Junlin felt a little sad rarely. He took a deep breath to suppress the astringency rising in his heart. If he was really determined not to come to Haikan, let him celebrate the New Year alone and Xiaoxian would lie alone. It must be so frustrating to spend the New Year in the hospital. This time the incident happened, he was indeed disappointed and sad. Afterwards, he reflected on himself, but there was no perfect solution. The two of them were stuck here, as if competing, neither one was willing to admit defeat. After spending so many years together, they both know where each other's bottom line is and have reasons why they cannot give in. But Jang Junlin also knows that Ji-sun is so uneasy and sensitive. In addition to experiencing uneasiness, it is also because of him. He is not a complacent person, but he only draws a circle for Ji-sun, so that Ji-sun can only survive within the scope he has drawn, and what he thinks and does must be within the circle he draws. But Ji Xian is not his slave, he is arrogant at heart, so he repeatedly dances around the edges of his circle to test his bottom line. He has been thinking about it these days. Why is this happening? Chang Junlin has never been so depressed. Ji-sun followed him like a piece of white paper, painting red, blue, and white. Every move he made was based on his wishes, so he worried about gain and loss, had low self-esteem and was sensitive. He had enjoyed so many years of obedience, but he had lost his confidence. How dare he accuse Ji-sun of not wanting to believe him? He is the one who has gained vested interests over the years. He turned Ji-sun into this, but he thought Ji-sun refused to believe him. That's too much. Why is he so harsh on Ji-sun? He is Ji-sun. Jang Junlin couldn't understand. He was like a feudal emperor. He knew that the queen was ambitious and had lofty aspirations and was unwilling to be trapped in a small area. However, he continued to restrict Ji-sun's authority and encircled a piece of land for him. He was very tough. He told him that you can't get out of this small land, otherwise, I will abandon you. He has never said that, but in Ji-sun's eyes, does his every move translate into this? Jang Junlin suppressed the astringency in his heart, thinking about it was useless. Ji Huan was sleeping soundly and felt a little uncomfortable. He kept holding his stomach. Jang Junlin asked Zhang Qiang to bring a hot water bottle and stuff it between his waist and abdomen. Have a sleep and you will be fine when you wake up. Ji Huan was awakened by the movement and opened his eyes tiredly. After seeing Jang Junlin, he blinked blankly, then his eyes brightened. Brother. Does it hurt? Jang Junlin adjusted the position of the hot water bottle. Seeing that he was about to stand up, he stretched out his hand to hold Ji-sun down. Lie down and don't move. Ji-sun reached out to pull his sleeve and asked in a low voice, are you still angry? Moi. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 719. Chapter 719 Xiaobeiwa's Inner World. Zhang Junlin was so soft-hearted. I'm sorry, brother was wrong. Xiaoxian, don't be angry and sleep well. When children are wronged, they cannot be coaxed and must endure it with all their strength. Especially children who have been unhappy since childhood do not like to talk about their grievances and always hide them deep in their hearts. If others do not come to coax them, these sensible children will resolve the matter themselves. However, when someone he cares about comes to comfort him, he can't hide his grievances. Ji-sun closes his eyes, unwilling to cry in front of him. It's so ugly. He thought to himself, it was really ugly. Because Zhang Junlin said sorry, all the grievances came to his heart. He had hidden them well these days and kept comforting himself. Even if his brother didn't come to celebrate the new year with him, it would be fine. He was alone. People can have fun, he cares, but they can no longer test his bottom line. But with Zhang Junlin by his side, he couldn't bear to sleep anymore. He was holding on physically and mentally, holding his hand tightly, afraid that he would leave. After so many years, he was most afraid of Zhang Junlin throwing away his hand and saying something. "I don't want you anymore." He absolutely will not be left behind for the second time. Therefore, once you feel a little uneasy, you have to grab something and have enough chips, because their relationship has always been like this. When they reunited, his brother had no intention of him, but he still tried to take advantage of the beauty trap. It was not easy to take advantage of Zhang Junlin. If he took advantage of it, he would give it back to him 10 points. He would get it back from other places and never suffer any loss. When they reunited, he was not yet sure that he would willingly be Lu Ziwen's heir. Let him stay in Black Hawk willingly. It was Ji Huan who saw through one thing. As long as he is valuable, Zhang Junlin will keep looking for him, so he must ensure that he is valuable. Only if he continues to give Zhang Junlin benefits will Zhang Junlin continue to fall prey to this beauty trap. When he was no longer of use, Zhang Junlin kicked him away. In the years after they reunited, this was the way they got along. Zhang Junlin decided the way they would get along. He had to follow this pattern. He wanted to change his heart for his sincerity. Sorry, Zhang Junlin doesn't need it. I don't care either. After so many years of dripping water, there is finally a dawn, but Ji Sun will never forget the pain of being left behind in those years. Even if Zhang Junlin takes him back to the Zhang family, even if he calls his relatives, grandparents, father, mother, I would still wake up in the middle of the night, and I would often ask myself, if he was no longer the president of the Blackhawks, the third master would not abdicate so soon, and he would have no use value at all. Would my brother still want him? So when his identity was exposed, Ji Huan's first reaction was to identify the Wang family, because this was also his bargaining chip. He didn't have much affection for the Wang family in his heart. After all, they hadn't gotten along with each other for so many years, and Mr. Wang had assassinated him. But he would still recognize it, even if he kept looking at the Wang family's cold faces, he didn't care. At that time, I thought that if I recognized them, the Wang family would not embarrass Zhang Junlin. But in fact, Ji Sun knew very well that his real idea was that with the Wang family supporting him, Zhang Junlin would have to think twice before abandoning him, and he would not dare to be so casual. In the past few years, Zhang Junlin has continued to give him a sense of security. Ji Sun could see that he really tried his best. Once Zhang Junlin made up his mind to do something, he would definitely achieve his goal. He also realized that he had no feelings for Ji Sun at the beginning. How casual, so he took the initiative to take him home and declare his sovereignty in front of everyone. Ji Sun was very happy, and he felt like a daughter-in-law who had been a wife for many years became a mother-in-law. But he had a stress reaction to those years of indifference, constant squeezing of value and abandonment. He hid it very well and did not dare to show anything even in front of Lu Ziwen for so many years. Once there is the slightest sign of trouble, he will take the wrong approach. Song Li was his deviant path. He had imprisoned Zhang Junlin, so how could he be so merciful to other people in the Jiadao? The life and death of those people had nothing to do with him. He wanted to penetrate into the Jiadao and control more of Zhang Junlin's lifeline. He carefully hid his inferiority and badness, and acted as a little white rabbit in the circle drawn by Zhang Junlin, but out of sight of Zhang Junlin, he stretched out his fangs in his belly. He knew he was wrong. Lu Ziwen was the first to notice his plan and had an in-depth talk with him. He told Ji Sun that this was a road of no return, but he did not stop him. He didn't know what the third master's mentality was, but he didn't stop him at all, so it was a dark road until Song Li's ambition was raised by him. He knew that if he caused a big disaster, it would be uncontrollable and Zhang Junlin would never forgive him. Song Li felt rebellious again, so he took advantage of his plan and silenced Song Li. Who knew that Song Lanying would be involved? After Song Lanying disappeared, Song Yin would be involved. These things could no longer be hidden. Zhang Junlin gave him a chance to confess, but he was still unwilling. He is too afraid of losing someone. He wanted to keep this person in his hands forever. He is also afraid that one day this person will know that he is a despicable and low self-esteem villain and abandon him. He does not even dare to strip himself in front of this person. He does not dare to let anyone know the darkness hidden in his heart. What he has done and what he wants to do is actually different from what he shows. He transformed himself into what Jang Junlin liked. But in fact, he has nothing to do with what Jang Junlin likes. He has always been Ji-sun who wanted to break his legs and imprison him for the rest of his life because he was afraid of being abandoned. What he feels aggrieved about is that you have turned me into this, and you can't just say I don't want it. Moi. End of this chapter. Shocking. She came back with a smaller version of the boss. Author, and knows. Chapter 720. Chapter 720. It's hard to stay in love. On New Year's Eve, the Zhang family was very lively. The elders also had a brief video chat with Ji Xian. Ji Xian obediently greeted them and said a few minutes. Because Zhang Junlin was not at home, Lu Ziyi and Lu Ziwen changed the New Year's Eve. Lu Ziwen's plan was to stay at Jiang's house for dinner before leaving. Lu Ziwen had never liked to socialize with the relatives in the Lu family. Ever since the two brothers Lu Shixiu had an accident, Lu Ziyi always felt uncomfortable spending New Year's Eve. This year, there were requests from relatives. He didn't respond to the incident and it was unpleasant, so he simply cancelled it and stayed at someone else's house for the new year for the first time. The main reason was that Gu Ziyu called his grandfather affectionately. He overheard Gu Ziyu calling Lu Ziwen's father. I was frightened and itchy in my heart. Perhaps because of my suspicion, the more I looked at Gu Ziyu, the more he looked like Lu Ziwen, and the more I wanted to be with Gu Ziyu. Gu Ziyu is a self-taught person who pleases the elderly. He is good at chatting about literature, geography, tea, growing flowers, and fishing. It is a mild winter in Sitia this year. There are no snowflakes and the weather is very cold. Lu Ziwen drinks tea with his elders after dinner. Drinking alone on the balcony of Gu Si's room. He likes to drink cold wine in recent years. Sandalwood is lit in the bedroom, which makes him very relaxed. Gu Si put her hands on his shoulders, squeezed them, smiled lightly and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "I miss Ji-sun." Lu Ziwen held her hand, sat on his lap, and took the half cup of cold wine he drank. "Would you like to drink it?" Gu Si took his hand and drank it. It was cold and this was peach blossom wine buried in the ground. It was very fragrant. After Gu Si finished drinking, she lowered her head and kissed him on the lips. The two of them had a gentle and long kiss. After the deep kiss, there was some emotion, but the time and place were wrong. Lu Ziwen suppressed the passion in his heart and hugged Gu Si tenderly. "What's wrong with Ji Xian? I just watched the video, and he looks fine. There should be nothing wrong with him. The gastritis is nothing. What I'm thinking about is the conflict between him and Zhang Junlin." Hearing this, Gu Si sighed. She was too busy during this period to care about other things. "I always thought that my brother and Ji Xian had a good relationship. It wasn't until Song Li's incident that I realized how many conflicts they had." Deep. This kind of contradiction is more difficult and frustrating than the contradictions in the world. The worldly conflicts between lovers when they fall in love are simply that they are not in the right family, that their status is not suitable enough, or that one party needs to get married and needs the benefits that marriage brings, but in the end, they are still in the wrong family. Ji Huan and Zhang Junlin did not have such a problem. Zhang Junlin did not care about family status. He did not mind that Ji Huan was an orphan. He was the grandson of the Wang family and had no influence in his eyes. Lu Ziwen said, "Zhang Junlin is the proud son of heaven. He has stood on the clouds since he was a child, leaning down to see the world. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was held and coaxed by a crowd of people as soon as he was born. No one has controlled him for being a picky eater since he was a child. If he cares about I have been starving Zio for 3 days, and I have given him the most disgusting food every day to turn him around. No one dares to say a word to Zhang Junlin until this day. This shows how tough the character is for a young master from an aristocratic family, or he will achieve nothing. Either a dandy will develop into a tyrant, and he is obviously the second type. Fortunately, the Zhang family is a scholarly family with a good family tradition. This tyrant is only reflected in his arbitrariness. When he was young, Zhang Minghua refused to take on the ultimate responsibility. He was groomed to be a successor because of his responsibility. Although he worked on the front line and went undercover, he had never encountered any trouble in half his life. He was also extremely smart and had no tricks at all, which further deepened his arbitrary character towards Gu Chuiyun. He has never gotten along with you, but he likes you very much. Is it because of blood ties? I don't think so. He didn't like Gu Chuiyun back then because Gu Chuiyun's character was not good and she didn't fit the image of his sister at all. He felt that his sister should be kind and open-minded, so when he was a boy, he tried to correct Gu Chuiyun's character. After trying a few times, he found that he would not change despite repeated admonitions. He looked old at the age of 3, so he let her go and pretended that he didn't have this sister. This shows that he wants people around him. Everything you think must be in line with his expectations. If not, you have to change it. If you can't change it, get out. Gu Si laughed. In fact, she had known Zhang Junlin's character for a long time. Her brother was good at everything, he also defended his shortcomings, he was smart and responsible, and he was a noble son in the traditional sense. There was only one thing he was criticized for, and it was very difficult to get along with him. Tired, his character is really too strong. If he wants to be round, you can't give him a square. If he wants to go east, you absolutely can't go west. His family can tolerate it, but outsiders may not. But he was born in the clouds since he was a child, so he doesn't need to accommodating anyone, he has to tolerate outsiders approaching him, but he doesn't have to tolerate anyone. Brother would definitely be the MVP if he were in the era of Kowloon winning the direct title. Lu Ziwen laughed, this sums it up perfectly, this is the character of an emperor, he wants everyone to be obedient. Therefore, Lu Ziwen and he hated each other, and it was impossible for him to follow Zhang Junlin's established route. So I feel sorry for Ji Sun. Of course, he brought it upon himself. No one can deny this, Lu Ziwen said lightly, do you know what I hate most about your brother? He is Pua Ji Sun. So you know. It's not my brother's fault, he is unconscious. That's what makes him so annoying. You can't blame him, Lu Ziwen sighed softly, he and Ji Sun met when they were young, and he saw the worst side of Ji Sun. After the reunion, although he was attracted to Ji Sun, he couldn't help it. Ji Sun is also stupid. He will do whatever Zhang Junlin wants him to do. Wrongly once said that Zhang Junlin is like raising a dog, and Ji Sun will lose his temper if he loses a bone. He leaned forward and became unhappy. Ji Xian hid in the corner and felt sad. But if Ji Xian was willing to be a dog, he would just live in the area defined by Zhang Junlin, but he was arrogant. Ao, he is essentially a wolf, not a dog, although wolves and dogs are from the same ancestry. I have known about Song Li for a long time. He wanted to reach out to the Jida. In the past few years, there were frequent incidents in the Jida. It was Ji Sun who was responsible. He wanted to control Zhang Junlin in turn. Isn't this just an idiot's dream? Zhang Junlin, I'm afraid he didn't expect that the person next to him would stick out his fangs behind his back. I have warned him a long time ago that if Zhang Junlin finds out, he will be dead. If he doesn't listen, he will go all the way to the dark side. When he was young, Sun was still willing to act like Zhang Junlin liked him. The older he got, the more he resisted. This kind of self-confrontation and inferiority would never turn back unless he hit a wall. Later, he realized that Song Li was too ambitious, so I was so stupid to clean it up, but I was afraid that Zhang Junlin would find out. If it were him, he would have gone all the way to the dark side, and Ji Sun would have been hesitant before something happened. You knew this a long time ago, why didn't you dissuade him? Why should I dissuade him? Lu Ziwen spread his hands. For so many years, Zhang Junlin has a vested interest, and he has never realized that his words and deeds are impairing Ji Sun, and Ji Sun has been made to feel insecure at all by him. Would he want to control Zhang Junlin in the past 10 years? Has any one of them changed? Sooner or later, their character will go to a dead end. Either he is stupid, he likes it so much, or he will always be Zhang Junlin's dog is obedient. People really like him anyway, so why should he care about himself? Since he cares and has reached out to the extreme, then he will go straight to the end, either succeeding or breaking up, and he will be indecisive in the middle. Something happened, you deserve it? Gu Si. You really hate your brother, so it's not a big deal to watch the fun, right? If the road really goes to the dark side, it will definitely be a breakup, and it is impossible to succeed. Why do people who love each other so much have such contradictions? Gu Si didn't understand. In fact, her brother loved him very much. He had broken many principles for him. He did everything he could and couldn't do. He gave everything he could and couldn't give, just to make Ji Sun feel a little bit safer. He couldn't figure out what his brother should do to make Ji Sun feel satisfied. If there is a right or wrong in this matter, it would be easier to discuss it, but there is no right or wrong, it is just a matter of personality. So, people who love each other may not be able to stay together. Have you ever seen an emperor or a beggar achieve righteousness in history? Gu Si. End of this chapter.